Okay, welcome back. So we're talking about how I don't really want you to use all those methods that are available to the scanner. I want you to use next line exclusively, and then I'll explain a little bit more. So let's say next thing I'm going to prompt you for is your score for some exam or something. Okay, so system.out print, and I'm going to say enter your score colon space just to make it look pretty. And then I'm going to do string, some sort of an input buffer, right? Doesn't really matter what it is equal to keyboard next line, right? But I don't want it as, I want to be able to convert it to an integer. So I do int score, and then I need to convert a string to an integer. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna type capital I integer, spell out the word, not int, dot, and there's one called parse, and there's parse int, and then buffer. Okay, let me explain what we just did. Okay, so parse int is a method of the integer class. Now, you might be going, wait a minute, you told me integer was a primitive data type, therefore it didn't have a class. Well, it is. Int is a primitive data type. Integer is the name of a class that just so happens to coincide. Now, please don't get them mixed up. I want you to use the primitive data type whenever you're declaring variables, but whenever you want to use a method from it, you have to use the class name. And so here's weird. For integer, they spell out the word integer. But for double and all the rest of them, it's just a capital letter. So long is just capital L, and double is just capital D, and float is just capital F. It's only the integer one where you actually have to spell out the word integer. Whatever. Okay. Now this will convert your input into a score. Now it won't do error checking. If you typed in Mary had a little lamb, this is going to fail, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. Okay, now one of the things you could do is you could actually combine this together on one line. So an alternative would be, I'm going to do int score2 is equal to integer parse int keyboard dot next line. Like that. Okay, let's go see how this thing worked. So we're going to go here and do us a system out print line, and then I want to know what we entered in for the name. So name is, and whatever the heck the name variable has in it, plus the score, and then plus the other score, the score2. Okay, let's run this, see what we get. Okay, enter my name. So I put the cursor down here because this is our user interface. While we're debugging, this is the input that the human has to do. So I'm going to say Bob. My score is 99. My second score is a 77. And then it comes up and says, my name is Bob, my score, everything will work just like it's supposed to. Hooray! Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is dialog boxes on page 93. Now, quite frankly, I'm a little concerned of why they put this in this part of the book, because this is like a Windows application, and we're nowhere near ready to do Windows application. So I'm just going to go through this in kind of broad strokes, because we are not going to be using dialog boxes in any of our assignments up to now, or for quite some time. So the two major types of dialog boxes, there's a message dialog box, which just spits messages on the screen, and then an input one, which is pretty decent for doing things like, getting input from somebody. If I go create me one of these things, I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's some significant problems with this. So first of all, I'm going to type J option pane dot and get a whole bunch of other stuff. And what I want, first of all, I'm probably going to have to go get me an import. That would make sense, right? So way up here at the top, it added this thing. Java X swing J option pane. Great. Okay, let's go back to here. So Java option pane, and then I want the one that's going to allow me to show a message dialog. So show message dialog. And this part's a little weird because this is the Windows component. They're asking what is the parent Windows component. Well, this is not a Windows application. So we have to kind of fudge this. And so I'm going to use the word null. Null is kind of a shortcut. It's a keyword that basically means nothing. So null. And then I'm going to say, the hello world. So what this is supposed to do is after I've gone through and gotten all my information, it's going to pop up something on my screen. So let's go see if it works. So this time my name is not Bob. This time my name is Sally, and my score is a 100, and my second score is a 55. Where is it? What happened? Didn't it work? Well, to tell you the honest to God truth, it probably kind of sort of did. It went behind the IDE, and so I couldn't see it. It's there, but I couldn't see it. So this is really kind of dumb, and that's one of the reasons why I am not going to be using this in any of our assignments. Okay, so displaying input dialog on page 94. I'm not even going to do that one, but I'll talk about it. It's a show input dialog, and then you give it, enter your name or whatever it is. Okay. They talk about in the book how you have to use a system exit to kind of force these things to work. I am not going to do that. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do that. This is just insane. Okay. All right, so we're kind of sort of done with the dialog boxes, and we're ready to move on to page 96, where we talk about converting string input into numbers. Now, we've done this several times. We've done it right there. But there's some other ones out there, so we need to kind of take a look at the list. So remember we talked about the parsing? So if I have byte, it's pice, and then double, and then float, and then integer, and long and short, blah, 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 blah. The integer one is the only one you have to type out. Okay? So remember now, the class names are going to be in uppercase, right? They're going to be Pascal case. And then the method's going to be in I said that wrong. No, I did. Okay, sorry. Camel case for that. And so, double num is equal to... Okay. So, one more time. What's the difference between integer and int? Well, one of them is I want to use the primitive data type, and the other is I want to use the class that's associated with the primitive data type. It is not really an integer in the truest sense of the word. It's just a bunch of utilities that you can use on integers, like converting them. On page 99, there's a pretty decent list of errors. So kind of go through that section. It talks about the common mistakes you can make, and they're pretty good. So I'm not going to repeat them here, but they're in the book. Okay, we have finally reached the end of this chapter, and I will see you guys again in the next chapter.